Hello, everyone. Today we are going to discuss Elastic Stack-based integration with WSO2 Identity Server. So I'm Avarjana Pandita, a software engineer at WSO2 IM team. So this is the lineup for today. So I will be giving a brief introduction to ELK, and then I will go through how to set up WSO2 IS to publish events, and then set up steps for ELK and WSO2 IS connection. And then I will briefly go through configuring alerts and then go through Elastic Stack configurations briefly. And then I will show you the Kibana dashboards. And then I'll go through other features like SSO alert publishing, risk-based adaptive authentication, likewise. So if you have questions, please feel free to post them in the chat section, and I will attend to them in the end of the session. So let's begin. Regarding the ELK, so you might have heard what is ELK or otherwise Elastic Stack. So it is a stack of components like Kibana, Elasticsearch, Logstash, Beats. So when we talk about ELK, I'll start with Beats. So Beats is the component that's responsible to read the log file and then ship it to Logstash. And then Logstash will do some processing and then will ship to Elasticsearch. The Elasticsearch will index them in different indices and serve when we require to display some data in Kibana. So Kibana is the visualization framework that we are using. So it will act as the user interface for our analytics solution. So this is basically what Elastic Stack is. So in the beats section, we are using file beats to read our log file, and they do have other integrations as well. Okay, so this is the architecture for our WSO2 Identity Server and ELK Stack integration. So in our Identity Server, we might have a few nodes. So that's the case when we go to a production environment. And then all of those nodes will have different log files. So for each node, we will install a file beat component, and then the file beat will read those log file, and then it will ship to Logstash. So from these different nodes, those logs will be shipped to Logstash. In the Logstash component, it will do some processing and aggregation functions, and then prepare the data and then send to Elasticsearch cluster. So in here, we will pick which index that we are going to store this data. So that can be configured, and I will go through those configurations as well. And then in the Elasticsearch cluster, we will store those data and serve them when necessary to Kibana visualization dashboards. So that's how these architecture work. This is like very high level architecture. So I will go through the config files. Okay, let's begin with the first item in our plan, introduction to ELK. So when we go to our documentation, the official documentation, you can see configure ELK analytics section. So in here, if you scroll down, there's a section called configure ELK. So in here, you can go to their official website, and then all the documentations and all the configuration steps for ELK will be there. So what you have to do is just go through those and install according to your operating system. Like if you're using macOS, you have to follow the specific instructions for macOS. And then you have to make sure that your Elasticsearch is up and running, and then go through these steps. So these are pretty straightforward. I'm not going to set up this because it will consume like large amount of time, because you have to download this and install and configure. So I will explain the configuration part. So when we install Elasticsearch and Kibana, so we need to configure these two to work together. In Elasticsearch, that Elasticsearch component has to know that this Kibana is existing in somewhere, and vice versa. So in there, they have simplified this process so that we just have to copy these enrollment key from the Elasticsearch. When we run the Elasticsearch for first time, they will just give us a Elasticsearch super user password, and then they will give us an enrollment key. So we don't have to worry about generating or anything. It's like pretty straightforward. So you have to copy that one, then run the run the Elasticsearch and then Kibana. So in Kibana, it will say you haven't configured Kibana yet, and then show your URL, and you click on that and go to that URL and just paste the enrollment key. Simple as that. So no rocket science, just straightforward steps. Okay, so that's about Kibana. So you know the basics and you know how to install. Like, it's straightforward. So if you have questions, please reach us. Okay, and then how to set up a WSO2 IS to publish events. So that's a pretty hard step. So I will show you. So you have to open this whole deployment YAML file from the IS server, and then you have to do very big things. So you have to put this whole 2 lines and then configure analytics. So that's a big step. So you have to configure that carefully. You know what I mean, right? So that's pretty straightforward, easy 2 lines. Analytics.elk enable true. That's all you have to do. So if you want, so by enabling the analytics by default, you will get your logs in the Carbon log file. So if you don't want that, and we do recommend using another file. So in that case, please go through this step. So you can forward these logs to a different file. So we are recommending this. So go through this log 4J2 properties file, and then add this stuff. So these are like, you don't have to go through each and every line unless you have a specific use case. You can just copy and paste these things and then change according to your use case. Like if you want to change the log rotation strategy, like maximum file size or maximum time interval, in that case, you have to go through these lines and then change these intervals and file sizes. So otherwise, you can just, if you are like playing with this, then just go with the Carbon log file, and that'll be fine. So it's just 2 lines. Okay, so that's pretty much the setup WSO is to publish events. So that's easy. Okay, then we have to set up ELK to get these logs and then process it and then publish it. So that part, like in the sense of setup, it's easy. Just copy paste few configs and run. But in the process, this is a somewhat complicated process. So I will walk you through it. So first we have to configure file beats. As you can remember, I said that in every identity server node, there will be file beat. So we have to configure each file beat to read this specific log file. So in here, this is the filebeat.yml file. So when you install filebeat, you can find this filebeat.yml file. So in here, in the setup steps, you can find this config in our repo. So in the artifact file here, sorry, yeah, in the artifact file here, you can go to the repo and filebeat, and then you can find the config. Okay. What you have to do is, if you want to like change this, be cautious, because you have to understand what is in the log file and why we are doing these steps. Otherwise, if you're just playing around, then you can just change this path. You just have to give the log file path with this asterisk mark, because we are using a log rotation. So in order to capture all the logs, we have to use this wildcard method. And then we are outputting this to log stash. So basically, this has 3 components. like every system that we learn from the like ABCs in the IT, we know we have input, processes, and output. Same concept goes here. File bit inputs. We are taking a file stream, and then we do pass these lines, and then we only include the event related stuff because we are using WSO2 carbon logs. And then we can add processes. So I will explain this later. So in the default config, you will not find these lines. So don't panic. I will explain those things. And then we have output. So from the file bit, we are output into logstash. As you can see here, from the file bit, we are output into logstash because there we are doing some other processing stuff. So after installing the logstash, you can download the logstash configuration as well. Go to logstash and you can find logstash file bit configuration. So this is for file bit and this is the recommended approach. If you want for a specific use case, you can use this HTTP config as well. So that's for another connector, not file bits. Again, in here, we have input, filters, and output. So filtering is basically processing. So in here, this is the logstash config. So I will move to my VS Code. It's pretty. So from the input, you can configure beats input and the port is 5044. So this is the default port. See, you can see it in here as well. Output logstash to 5044 and this is taken from 5044. That's straightforward basic port. And then we do some filtering. So in case we did get a unwanted line, we are dropping that. If the event is not there, then we are going to drop that. And then we will change these keywords and then we will do some grok filtering. So if you want to learn more about grok, it's a different lesson. So I can't like include it in this 15-minute session. And then we will do JSON conversion and then Ruby code to filter our users roles. And then we do date filtering. And then based on the event type, if it's a session related event or authentication related event, based on that, we do some operations like user agent resolving and then GeoIP resolving. So likewise, all these user agent, GeoIP, these things are built in for logstash. So we don't have to worry about like coding anything else. Like these are pretty straightforward filters. You can read them, read about them, and you can even customize these things according to your need. This is like really flexible for changes. And then this is the output section that I explained, that logstash is the one deciding where this is going to get indexed. So in the Elasticsearch output, if it's an authentication event, so we are going to put it in the index WSO2 IM author. So otherwise it will be session row. So likewise, we can decide what index these things are going. So you can change this even and be cautious. We have to change the Kibana configuration as well. And apart from that, in the default section, you have to change this CA cert path. So this HTTP CA certificate, we are using HTTPS. So that's why we need to provide the CA cert. So this is the cert that comes by default with the Elasticsearch installation. So what I did was copy that into logstash folder and give that path because that was easier for me. It doesn't matter if you want to give the if you are going to give the absolute path, you have to like put it somewhere secure and then give the path. Yeah, that's pretty much it about logstash configuration. So we are halfway there. So as I said, if you are just going to play with this, you just have to change this line and then these 3 lines. Okay, nothing else. So since I explained this, it might like sound complicated, but it's not. Just two or three simple lines to change. Okay. So now we are here. So let's see. So we still have to configure Elasticsearch and Kibana. So as I mentioned, we already did configure this connection. When we do the enrollment key thing, we establish this connection. Since we mentioned that output section, this connection is also there. So now what we need to do is we need to configure these visualizations. What I mean by visualizations is you have this Kibana folder here. In here, you can see saved objects. In here, you can see alerts, auth, and session. So these are indigenous files which can be imported to our Kibana installation. It's simple, and all the steps are in the official documentation, and also you can follow my blog. So like I have added step-by-step instructions, and you can put a comment always, and I will address them. And then you just have to go there, and under the saved objects, you can import those things. So you don't have to do complex coding or anything, just import those two files. That's all. And then you will see these things, auth dashboard, session dashboard, alert dashboard. So you can go there and check if it's working. So it should be working like this. Okay. So I have already imported these things because we have limited time. And then, so now this step is completed. ELK and WSO2 IS connection to publish logs. So what we have to do is we have to verify if it's working. So I have added a user named Bob, and we do have the default user admin. So I'm going to log into my account. So this is my account. So I'm going to log in that. Let's say admin. Okay, I'm in. So this means there should be an event published. So in here, in the authentication event, I can refresh this, and you can see that there's a one success login attempt. And then I had the user Bob. Let's see. So I'm going to intentionally make this wrong. So this is Bob, and now, so let's say Bob1, and then, okay, that's a failed attempt. So this is one event, and there is the failed event. In here, you can see admin had one success login, and Bob1, there's no such user, so that's a failed login. So you can go through these dashboards, and then you can explore these things. Session dashboard, how many active users are currently here. Likewise, you can check these sessions. So I will go through them later in the session, one by one. Okay, so when you initially configure, these two dashboards will work. Okay, these two dashboards will work, but this alert dashboard will be broken. There's a reason, because we have to configure alerts. If you can see here, in the ELK analytics configuration, we only provide the auth and session dashboards. To configure ELK alerts, we have to go through these steps. In here, you have to do a curl request. So it's like it will take more time than what we did up to now. So that's as far as I can say. Let's see. So what we have to do is, when the alert dashboard is broken, there's steps. So as you can see, there's this transform section. So this is long session and suspicious logins. So these two curl commands you have to execute. You can use postman like environment. So you can import these curl requests and then send. So make sure you put the authorization, otherwise it will fail, because ELK is Elasticsearch is always using basic code to validate in here. So that's by default, unless you change it. Okay, so after sending those two, you can see two transformations. So these are transformation, and I will explain what that is briefly. So if you want more info, like how to write complex transformations, you can check my blog on that. So there I explained how to build a transformation step by step. So these are pre-built for you, so you don't have to worry about the syntax of code. So in here, you will see two transformations created, one for long session alerts, one for suspicious login alerts. So these will incorporate the old analytics long session and suspicious login. What I want to say is like the same logic as them. So if there's a session longer than 15 minutes and it's a long session, if user try to log in like 3 attempts and 1 failed attempt, then it will be a suspicious login. Likewise, so like successful login after multiple failure logins. So those will be captured from here, and then it will be sent to this two new indices. Here you can see IAM alert auth and alert session. So these two you didn't see earlier. These three are created from the logstash itself. These are created from the transform. What transform does is it will take these auth and session events stored in Elasticsearch and then go through them like 5 minutes interval. Let's take the latest 5 minutes, previous 5 minutes events, and then aggregate them and find if there is a long session available at that time or suspicious login attempt. So it will be a repetitive task. It will get triggered at a time interval that you are going to give. So by default, it's 1 minute. You can even change it to 1 second. That's up to you. So be cautious when you change that to a small time interval, because when these indices grow, and if you have like a small Elasticsearch cluster, the search times and aggregation times will be higher. So you have to be cautious when doing such short intervals like 1 second, 2 second, likewise. So 1 minute is a safe interval in my experience. So I'm not going to say it's a must to have 1 minute. It's safe for small deployments. Okay. And then, so the alert part is good. So when you run that transformations, these two will get created. So these two are the causing problem that's causing this alert dashboard to show an error. So the error should go away after you send those two curl requests and start the transforms. So those steps are already in the documentation and in the blog and in the repo as well. So you can go through them. So that's pretty straightforward steps. So nothing complicated other than sending those two curl requests. So if you're coming from an undeveloped background, so this Postman app is really easy to use, and you have the web version if you want to try. You don't have to like download and use it. So it's easy to use. Okay, so I went through some ELK configs, and then I will go through these dashboard components so that you will get proper understanding on them. Okay, let's go with the whole dashboard. So in here, you can see the name and the navigation panel where you can navigate through dashboards and other stuff. And then these are the filters that you can use to filter this data, like auth type, local low, federated, username, user stores, tenant, identity provider, service provider, likewise. You can use those filters. So it's a global filter for this dashboard. So if I say admin, it will apply to all these components, and I can clear them, and then it will get back to normal. And then you can use this time filter built in default for Kibana dashboards. So you can select time range or last X minutes, X times, like 1 year, 2 year, likewise, you can filter. And then there is this donut chart, bar chart for logins by username, and then by service provider, identity provider, and then top 5 roles, what are the roles that frequently log in, and then user store domain, and the map where my users are, and the login item records. So that's it for all dashboard. And then for the session dashboard, you can see how many active sessions are there, and you can see similar set of filters and average session durations, and then new active terminated session counts over time, and then longer sessions by users, session duration, like how many less than 5-minute sessions, how many less than 15 minutes, likewise. And then session count by OS and web browser. So this is what that user agent filter did. It will decode these OS and web browser stuff. And for the GeoIP filter, that's the part acting for this map visualization. So it will decode the GeoIP location from the IP address. And then from alert dashboard, as I mentioned earlier, we have abnormal long sessions and suspicious logins. So that's pretty much it. And then you can go to these visualizations and customize any of these or add anything else you want. That's the complete freedom is there and the flexibility is there. They have many lens types like visualization types and aggregation based visualizations if you want to use legacy visualizations like aggregation based or the new ones with lens. So you can do anything and add them. So that's the flexibility I'm talking about in ELK stack. So if you like, let's say you don't like this dashboard, then you can even use the indexes you created and then use those from Elasticsearch API and build your own dashboard. That flexibility is always there with ELK. And then we do have some additional features, nice to have features. And I have to mention this, like I must mention this because when you're going to try these features like SSO alert publishing, so these two are paid features from ELK. So you have to buy subscription to use this. Don't worry, they give you a 1-month trial. So if you are just going to try and play around, you can activate the trial license and it will give you 1 month free. Go to stack management and there's license management and you can start trial. So that will enable all the paid features and you can try those things. So they have SSO support. So this is a trial version. So that SSO feature is not going to work. So I'm just going to show a login with Elasticsearch and we can integrate that with our WSO2 server. So in here you can see we can have there is a documentation section to configure this with the WSO2 Identity Server to use SSO feature. And then we can use alert publishing. So what you saw this, so in earlier alert dashboard is just a static dashboard, right? So you can go to this dashboard and view what happened. Rather, you can do you can send an email or post it to a Slack thread. Like if there's a suspicious login, you can post to a Slack thread. Like there are many integrations present. So you can always use those integrations. So since I'm running on this basic version, I don't have these features. So if you start the trial, you can see these connectors and then you can configure them. So even email or anything. And then we do have a risk-based adaptive authentication as well. So if you want to use that adaptive authentication feature, like go through these steps, there are like few steps to do setup because these are like some advanced features, not just visualizing the stuff that's already in the database. So, and then you can always try this scenario. This is an interesting scenario where we are going to like go through bank transactions, and based on that, we calculate the risk using Elasticsearch. So what's the catch here is like Elasticsearch is really fast in processing. So many people use that for search indexing. So in this, when we do have analytic data, we can use this to index. So this will be pretty fast queries. So that will enhance the security and won't give a bad user experience. So those are the additional features that I wanted to discuss with you and go through. So yeah, that's all I have to say. So if you have any questions, you can post it in the chat. And while we are waiting for the questions, you can check our Twitter channel, Slack channel, and Discord. So you can ask questions there as well. So we will always attend to those questions. So since we don't have any questions posted in the chat, we can wind up the session. So thank you everyone for listening to the session. Have a pleasant day.